Right, good afternoon everyone. John here. I'm with, of course, our James Goddard with his Trump 2020 hat on, and I'm with Jason Burns, Oldham's very own street preacher extraordinaire, and he's visiting us for a couple of weeks before he goes back to Ghana. So we're just going to have a quick brief chat with him about what he's up to. Right. Take it away, James.
Yeah, as John's rightfully said, we're in Manchester. It's good to meet you, because I've never met you before. And what we do know is Jason is a Christian missionary in Africa, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question to ask is, what's it like over in Africa in regards to preaching the gospel and promoting Christianity?
Well, 200 years ago we went over there as colonials.
Yes.
Well, Christianity's not gone as deep as it should have done. So there's a lot of mixture, but still their own kind of chieftain religions with Christianity. So it's a very difficult situation because it's like you're starting over again, re-mission and reviving. Yeah.
So would you say the majority? So what is like the average response of like the citizens of where you are? Are they embracing Christianity, or do you think it's more? How can I phrase this? So are they embracing it, or are they going more down the atheist route, or more towards the Islamic route?
They're very religious. Well, I think it's half Islamic, but half Christian. But it's more kind of a religious Christianity. It's not like a Christianity where they're preaching about Jesus. It's more like just religion.
Okay.
It's like you're born into it. It's got a real heart in it.
Yeah, so it's almost like it's like passed down the generation. Well, like a majority of people in the UK that aren't religious, that are Christians. So, what's it like in Africa? Because we hear a lot of misconceptions all the time. What's it like?
Well, there's a third of them are racist, a third of them are treat you like a king, and a third of them just a lot of them are struggling because their economy is so bad.
Yeah.
The banks are collapsing. There's no infrastructure. So the things that we take for granted here, like for example hospitals, there's 3 hospitals in Accra
The capital of Ghana, yeah.
for 11 million people.
That's rubbish. That's unbelievable.
Surely.
There's a couple of private hospitals, but the ones for the people is about 3 hospitals.
So basically, like obviously the working class in England are persecuted, but we're seeing that. So it is a class thing across the entire world. So if you're wealthy in Ghana, you live a good life. But if you're saying the same as what we are in the UK, then we'd be struggling to get water, we'd be struggling for hospital treatment. So is there anything that the people of the United Kingdom can do to help people out in Ghana? Well, the Christians, not the Muslims.
There's like the schools, if you can send clothes, if you can help charities, anything that you can do, send like sewing machines or things that they can start a work with. Because basically the main work there is, imagine a shack, for Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah.
Or what's the other one? Alfred, the old guy.
Stepstone's son.
It's like going back in that time. There's just shacks everywhere where everybody's set up shops.
Yeah.
And these shops are just selling bits of toffees and stuff like that. So anything that you could send where they could start work, like sewing machines or anything like that.
We can send shipping containers, can't we? Barrels.
If you could do that, shipping containers of clothes or
school books,
anything like that, that would be like amazing because they just haven't got the resources.
If I'm correct, Ghana, the first language is English, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it's good to have English-speaking Ghanaians. So the next question I want to ask is, because obviously you're a preacher, I'm a Christian, but I'll admit that I don't know nearly as much as I should know. So there's two, I wouldn't say conflicting issues, but a lot of people are saying you can't be a Christian and a nationalist at the same time. What are your thoughts on that as a Christian and a nationalist?
Well, you can be a Christian and a nationalist and be proud of your nation and work towards your nation, but it's just to remember that ultimately, there's a kingdom that's going to last longer than, say, the United Kingdom or America, and that's Christ's kingdom. That's going to last forever.
Yeah.
But it's not wrong as a Christian in your nation to love your nation and try to do the best to preserve your nation and bless your nation.
Which is exactly what we should be doing, because if the big talking point on the right at the minute is you've got civic nationalism, and ethno-nationalism. Now, we know the civic nationalists, we're not going to name them, we're not going to give them the satisfaction of naming them, but for me, civic nationalism is at odds to us as a people and as a race, because if we look at civic nationalism, it's basically saying anybody can come into the United Kingdom, they abide by our laws, they automatically become British. Now, the problem I have with that is that, number one, we need to stop immigration altogether, because this country is losing its identity and its people are losing the identity. So I guess the way we could frame the argument for the viewers is indigenous English people have a right to remain the majority in our country, as indigenous Ghanaians do in their own country. So how could we, I suppose the question is, how can we get more Christians on board with the nationalist side? Because there's a lot of Christians that will say that nationalism, it's about race, it's about ethnicity, and I speak to a lot of people that would be quite happy to have like Christians from the third world flood into the United Kingdom, whereas me, although that I'd welcome Christian migration, I believe that we should be doing our best to ensure we remain the majority. We've gone on a bit here, but what's the feeling in Ghana? I mean, are you experiencing any of the same problems that the United Kingdom's experiencing at the minute?
At the moment, I think Ghana's not too bad, but it will be with Nigeria, because Nigerians flood everywhere.
Yeah.
So there is coming a point where the Nigerians will flood, and there are the struggles in Africa are that when like Nigerians are going to South Africa, and Ghanaians are going to South Africa, and there's fights breaking out because people are fed up because people are taking jobs. But I think some of the problems with the nationalism is the issue of leadership.
Yeah.
Is that there's a perception that the leaders are not quality leaders. Like if you had people like Lord Pearson leading, in the sense that people kind of political stature, then whatever the voice is, it would have more of an hearing. So I think people like have a rightly or wrongly, they equate it with kind of fuggishness.
Yeah,
and it's got that stigma. So they have to break out of that and then communicate eloquently and more clearly. And until that breaks out, I don't think it's going to reach the Christian church.
Yeah, because the way I look at it, especially in regards to the Church of England and Christianity in Europe as a whole, is it's almost become a dirty word, and it shouldn't be. Like, the way I look at it is, look, Judeo-Christian values helped build the West. It's what made Europe great. And now we're seeing that Christendom is under attack. You know, we've seen Boris Johnson call for more migration from the Islamic world into the United Kingdom, and that's something that deeply concerns me. And I'm sure in Ghana, because the geographic proximity of it to Nigeria, there's also the threat from Boko Haram, as well as the other Islamist terrorist groups that are operating in that area. So what, in regards to, are there a lot of attacks on Christians in Ghana? Because we're hearing all the time about the attacks on Christians in Nigeria.
I think in Ghana it's okay. The reason is that the extremists haven't got a foothold there. For some reason, that we're surrounded by Muslim countries.
Yeah.
And some of those Muslim countries, they have extremists. For some reason, they've not infiltrated Ghana, but there will be a point where they will infiltrate Ghana. So at the moment, it's quite peaceful.
Yeah.
But how long that will last, when you're surrounded by Boko Haram and other groups, is the question. Is a question. But I think we have to face the fact that if you look at the history of the West, three facts. Fact number one, the West has been influenced by Judeo-Christianity.
Yeah.
And it is mad that the establishment today have thrown that away. The attack on the family.
Yeah.
Right? Socialism and and the political correctness have decimated the family.
Yeah.
Right? The Sunday schools having assemblies in the schools. These things have changed the culture. When you go to school, you don't learn about the history of your nation.
Yeah.
So you're not learning.
Well, you're taught to feel guilt about the history of our nation, which is an unfortunate thing.
This is what I'm getting onto. That they're not teaching you the history of the nation. They'll talk black history, gay history, this history, that history, but they won't tell you about the Christian history.
Yeah.
As a Christian narrative. So if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And as a nation today, we've thrown away our Christian heritage, and we can see moral anarchy breaking out everywhere.
But that's the thing, we've got this whole vile LGBT agenda that is being pushed onto our children, that is being pushed into the schools, and it's almost like that. You're right there. It's about identity and the fact that they're trying to strip away what makes us what makes us British, European, but what common ground we share with Europe, and that's Christianity. And this is the thing that annoys me a bit, because you've got the atheists that will go against Christianity, but they don't realise it's actually Christianity that has helped turn this nation into what it is today. And for us to turn our backs on it, not only is it an insult to Christ, but it's also an insult to the next generations that are going to be essentially spiritually homeless. And all we see from the public schools, the state-run schools, are the indoctrination of left-wing politics and the indoctrination of our children into learning about Islam. I personally, I don't know, I've only just met you, but for me, I class Islam as a threat, not only to us, but to anybody that doesn't follow that religion. It is a complete threat, and it needs, in my opinion, to be banned from the West, and we need to be promoting Christianity. We shouldn't be allowing religious minorities to dominate the conversation and ultimately silence Christians.
Don't we first of all address the problem, don't we? And we talk about the problems we have with Islam in our country. Before we do anything else, we've got to talk about it, but we're not even allowed to talk about it.
That's because, like, when communism collapsed, the communists didn't go away. The communists went into our universities, and they worked a way how to undermine Western civilization, and that is by using identity politics. And using identity politics to take away the basic foundations of school education. And like, if you don't know your history, you're finished as a nation, you're dead as a nation. If you are not taught your values, you're dead as a nation. And so now what's happening is there's a vacuum, and that vacuum is not strong enough to be filled by identity politics. It's too weak.
Yeah.
So what's going to be filled is not secularism, it's going to be filled by Islam.
Yeah.
And so the next 10, 20, 30 years, if you want to know what Britain's going to be like, go and look at Philippines. Go and look at what happened in the Philippines. There's a city as big as Manchester. Go and look at that city, what happened to that city. It's now not there. So we have to face the fact that in the next 10 to 20, 30 years, that the West is going to be more Islamified. And if we don't wake up about it, if we don't start to stand up about it, if we don't start to Christianize the West again and come back to our Christian values and stand up for that, then we're lost. And already we're seeing the collapse of free speech. And that is because the values that underline our Western civilization, that each person has dignity, that each person is a free agent before God. Jürgen Habermas, who was an atheist, the most intellectual atheist in the West, one of the most intellectual, said, our civilization was built on Judeo-Christian values. So until we come back to that, we're just going to get more and more moral vacuum, more and more taking our free speech away, more and more this leftist bigotry, more of this madness with transgender, moral confusion, and then Islam will come in.
Well, that's the thing. By the year 2066, ethnic English, Brits, whatever you want to call them, will become a minority in our own. Afternoon, constables. Would you like to come and be educated?
Come on.
Definitely going to hell, all of it.
Come on, carry on.
Now, we're talking about demographics, and it's true what you said, because the demographics not only of this country but of Europe as a whole are changing. And my biggest concern and fear is the fact that when we become a minority in our own continent, in our own countries, we aren't going to be afforded the same rights and privileges that the minorities currently receive today. And it's like, you can profess your Christian beliefs to people. Oh, you're an extremist. You can't say this. Yet when you've got Muslims professing their beliefs, it's okay for them to do it. But it's almost like we're not allowed, and it's an attack on the identity. You're not allowed to be Christian. You're not allowed to be proud of your country. You must be ashamed of slavery. It's complete utter rubbish. If we're going to talk slavery, then we need to talk about the trans-Saharan slave trade, which was much bigger than the transatlantic one. And there's still Africans today that are victims of slavery. You only have to look at Libya and other countries. But I suppose the message is going forward. We always hear so much negativity. What can we do to be positive?
Oh, the positive, you've got to be 3 steps ahead of your enemy. And at the moment, the enemy's 3 steps ahead of us. If you look at Ali Dawah and
Met him a few times.
if you look at Ali Dawah and Mohammed Hijab, you look at all the Muslim Dawah teams.
Yeah. Well, there's one just up there, but he won't speak to me.
But if you look at them, just notice what they're doing. They're 3 steps ahead of us. They're Islamifying the nation,
Yeah.
right? They got cool T-shirts. They're looking cool. They have these cool shows.
Hey, we're trying.
No, I know, but I'm just saying though, like, you go to Ghana,
Yeah.
right? The Islam in Ghana is not on the move.
Yeah.
But Islam in the West is on the move. The reason being is they see us as a prize to win.
Yeah.
They're doing everything they can to win Britain, and we're being taken by surprise. We're taken by we're asleep, and we need to be 3 steps. So my positive thing is you need to sit down, strategize, and be 3 steps ahead of the establishment and 3 steps ahead of the Islamic Dawah teams.
Well, there is one solution I've got. It's called repatriation. So I'd start by deporting the entire, not just the Islamic populations of the UK, but of Europe as a whole. Only then will we be able to protect Europe, and that's what we need to do, is to protect Europe, because the attacks on churches are increasing, the attacks on Jews are increasing, the attacks on our children are increasing, and this has all been facilitated and imported by the political class, because they don't have to live in the same world that we do, and these are the people that are still going around telling people that Islam's a religion of peace when it's not. It's anything but a religion of peace. There is one religion of peace, and that's Christianity, and I know you'll agree with me on that. So I think that the next thing to say is, where can people find your content on YouTube?
Just Google Jason Burns. There's more videos of me than Elvis Presley. So you'll be all right. So, but the thing is for me, ultimately, the answer for me is that unless the nation turns back to God, because we can have all these ideas, but unless the nation is willing to follow God and obey God, all the plans that people do are not going to work. And the nation is turned it. Do you know when the Queen got coronated?
1954.
Do you know what she said at the coronation?
That she would uphold her duty to protect Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's every time a monarch is anointed, they're given the book. There is no, I may be wrong on this, there is no true, I was reading it the other day, this book is basically your world and the law, and the Queen's gone back on a lot of things. I don't know why there's so much support for her, because she's got power, and she, as the head, especially as the head of the church, she should be pushing Christianity. She shouldn't be facilitating the Islamic takeover, which is something that's very concerning. But it was great speaking to you, Jason.
Can I just finish last bit?
Yeah,
Last bit.
you take over.
You see, in the time of the Queen, just around that time, most people went to Sunday school. Most people sang Christian hymns. Most people had a Bible in their house. They had a King James Bible. They read the Fox's Book of Martyrs. They knew about Pilgrim's Progress. They knew about William Wilberforce, who stopped slavery in the West. Yeah? But now, how many people got a King James Bible? How many people read the Fox's Book of Martyrs? How many people know about John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress? How many people know about William Wilberforce stopped slavery? He was a Christian. So we've until we return to our faith, we'll never be strong. And whatever we do, we'll never go forward.
Yeah, we've said, I think we have to agree, we've said it, James has said it, I've said it, the people who we go on channels and that, they said the same thing. We need to go back to our faith. Even those who don't believe so much or aren't as faithful, we need to look at how we was brought up. And when you were saying about going to Sunday school, I went to Sunday school, I went to the Boys Brigade, and these were all institutions linked to the church, and I believe that that's the kind of values that's been bred into me to make me the person I am now, and to make James the person he is, and to make you the man you are.
And you need the political answer, the political action, but you need the spiritual side. Until the nation is renewed spiritually, then the political will be strong. But if the political doesn't have the spiritual side as well,
It's going to be weak.
You need both. You look at Islam, they're strong politically and community-wise. Until we have that back, that spiritual strength, then, and the other thing as well, just to note, Islam has never been defeated only by war. So when Islam, this is just a fact, you can't reason with Islam. You can't even go in and missionize Islam and change the whole nation. When you look how they came into Europe, it was El Cid that kicked them out of Spain. It was Austria, the Polish stopped them. Yeah? So the fact of the matter is that at some point in the next 30 to 40 years, these Islamic enclaves will want their political rights in Western culture, and there's going to be conflict. The only way to stop that is the nations wake up to their Christian heritage and be revived spiritually, and then they can stand up politically.
Or, I completely agree with him. Islam was bought by the sword. It serves no purpose in Europe. It serves no purpose in the world. And look, let's look at the facts. Anybody that puts a man up on a pedestal that is a paedophile, that is a warlord, that kept slaves, is that really a religion that we want in Europe? Because Islam opposes free speech, it oppresses women, and it mutilates children. So as long as Islam exists, there will never be peace in the West, and this is why 100% we have to start the mass repatriation of the Islamic population of Europe. And like you said, make Britain Christian again. Communists, leftists, they are the scum of the earth, and they will all be going to hell. I could go on for days about Islam, but I'm already in enough trouble. But
I know you are.
Take care. God bless you.
Jason, thank you, sir. Thank you. Honestly, ultimate respect.
And